Okay, then I'm going to start the recording. Pull up the slide with your information on it. Okay, so was going to end with this, and I will put it up at the end, but just so you can see who all is participating today. Chris, Jenna, Jody, if you each want to take a minute to introduce yourselves and why you're here for the nonprofit advocacy.
Sure. Any particular order?
Sure. Let's just go in order of how we see you here. So Chris, if you wouldn't mind going first.
Sure. Hi, everybody. My name's Chris Buckley. As you can see, I'm a U of M alum. I got my master's degree from the College of Education and Human Development in counseling. And I currently work for the National Marrow Donor Program, or Be the Match, as we're known to the public. We operate one of the world's most diverse registries, matching donors with patients who are in need of a cellular therapy, like a bone marrow transplant. So patients who have some kind of blood cancer, like leukemia or lymphoma. I come to Be the Match from the American Red Cross, where I held a kind of similar recruiting role. And then before that, I actually spent most of my career at the U of M. In career services, I worked for the College of Liberal Arts in the career services office for many years, as well as a few other offices on campus. So I know I've been in your shoes. I've been in your staff's shoes who are working with you, working hard to help you prepare. So happy to be here and help you out.
Thanks, Chris. Jenna, if you want to go ahead.
Absolutely. Hi, my name is Jenna Reed. I'm the Director of Legal Services at Tubman. I'm also a licensed attorney in the state of Minnesota. So at Tubman, we work with victims of domestic and sexual violence. We have a number of programs, including our legal program, youth program, shelter programs, mental health, chemical dependency. So in some of those programs, we do work with those outside of those who have experienced violence. And I am coming to chat about nonprofit and advocacy today, specifically because I didn't know it was a career choice before I went into law school. And so it's something I really like to share with others. I have spent most of my career in the domestic and sexual violence field. And I think hopefully that covers everything.
Great. Thanks, Jenna. And Jody?
Hi, my name is Jody Paulson, and I am the Assistant Director of Talent Acquisition for Fraser. Fraser is a leading provider of mental health and autism services for all the way from children to adults. So I am here today to talk about nonprofit and advocacy because I have worked in both fields. I've worked in for-profit and nonprofit, and I'm back now again in nonprofit and really enjoying it, and would love to share more about that.
Awesome. Well, thank you three for joining today. I'm going to stop with the image for right now, and I'll put it up again at the end so that you all can write down the contact information if you have some further questions, because I know we'll be a bit pressed on time today, but try to make it all fit. Okay, so just pulling up my questions here. I'll introduce myself quickly. My name is Dylan Mazza. I work in the Career Center offices for CLA. Your facilitator today did have it on the nameplate on our first try, but didn't spend the time re-entering it now. So if you have any questions, feel free to put them in the chat. Beth is helping me out in the chat, and we'll ask any questions that come across. So throw them in anytime. As you've all discovered, we're in the nonprofit advocacy career field chat with employers, and the goal of this session is to explore the industry of nonprofit advocacy. So hopefully we'll be able to connect you with alumni employers who are in this field, and this session is a part of a series of student prep events for the CLA internship and career fair. Panelists are going to speak for the personal career journey, as well as offer suggestions of how to prepare for this industry. Okay, so let's start with some questions. Anyone who wants to start, what are some key things that you think define this career field and those interested in it?
I'm happy to go.
Go ahead.
Okay, so what defines the career field that I'm in, and it's a nonprofit, it's mental health and autism services. And some of the characteristics in it, and I guess what draws me to it, and it's probably true of all the nonprofits, it's all about, and it's our tagline, help us help more. You know, you're in the field because you want to help people, because you want to make a difference, because you want a fulfilling career.
I agree with Jody. And I think that what's interesting about nonprofit is I think it's really expanded, that, you know, we're focusing specifically at Tubman, we're focusing on working with survivors, but we're also really focusing on social justice and how our work affects the world more broadly. So I think what's really nice about nonprofit is there's a lot of opportunities to effectuate change, both maybe in your career path or, you know, the niche of nonprofit that you're in, but also more broadly as well.
Chris, anything you'd add to that?
No, I think they covered it. I guess I'll just add, you know, the people that I talk to who are drawn to working at Be the Match, you know, talk about wanting to work at a mission-driven organization. So I think, you know, that's a key defining characteristic, I think, of those working in the nonprofit sector. You know, because there are some trade-offs. You could get paid more in the private sector, depending on your field. But I think, you know, that strong pull of wanting to work for an organization that is accomplishing something that you believe in, I think is a common characteristic.
That's a great point, Chris. And actually, perfect segue into the next question. For any students who may be here or are less familiar with nonprofit and advocacy and what exactly that means, how would you define what is encompassed within that career field?
I'll go ahead and go since I went last time. Well, what I can kind of talk about a little bit is what personally drew me to it is I really love the environment that's in a nonprofit, the people, the purpose, and as Chris said, the mission. And you get opportunities at a nonprofit because typically they're smaller that you're not going to get in a large corporate organization due to the fact that leadership is right there. You know, you're working with them almost daily. And they want you to be more of a generalist than specific and to think of things outside of the box. You can also be more nimble and able to change more quickly with the market. So it's actually a lot of fun. It's kind of entrepreneurial.
I'm just going to piggyback off of what Jody was saying. Sorry, Jody, I'm going to do that all day today, apparently. I think with nonprofit, I would agree. I think things can be done a lot faster too. Some of my colleagues who are in that for-profit field or government fields get really frustrated when they can't make changes more immediately. And I think with nonprofit, we want to stay really relevant. And so we are interested in wanting to make changes faster. So I would say nonprofit and advocacy in general is really just advocacy for, you know, whatever your nonprofit is focusing on. We've got 3 nonprofits here that are focusing on 3 very different but very important issues. So I think it's just advocacy within your role can look really different depending on your nonprofit as well as your specific role within that nonprofit. But for us with our team, you know, we've got advocates, quote unquote advocates and quote unquote attorneys, but I always talk about, you know, we're all advocates. And we're all advocating for that change in whatever way that might be.
I guess I'll just jump in kind of to round things out. You know, I've now worked for 2 very large nonprofits, you know, what you might call national nonprofits. So that I think that can be a bit of a different experience than maybe a more local, you know, nonprofit that's you know, specific to a specific community or state. So Be the Match is a very large organization. We have employees all over the country. We have a lot of different roles, and so it it does have a little bit of a feeling of working for like a larger company where people are moving around internally. There's like opportunities for promotion and building your career and diversifying your skill set in a different by changing titles and changing roles. You know, in a way that might be different from a small organization where you sort of wear many hats, either formally or informally, you know, on a small team. And the Red Cross was also, you know, very large, but actually as a large organization, very bureaucratic, kind of like working for the government. So very different than Be the Match, which sort of feels like working for a biotech startup in some ways.
Thank you for that input. I think this next question, each of you kind of covered partly in your introduction or that previous answer, but just to succinctly summarize, why are you interested in this field in particular, and maybe how were you introduced to it, or what keeps you motivated in this field?
I started in the nonprofit field earlier on in my career. I then went to for-profit. And as I, probably work another 5 to 10 years, and I thought I want to be a nonprofit. That's where I want to end my career. It's just the people that you work with and the overall feeling that you really are making a difference and you can actually see it. It's tangible most of the time. That's just where I wanted to be, and that's where I'm most happy. And just the opportunity to, as I mentioned before, you're more of a generalist, so you're never really boxed in, and you can be really creative and think outside of the box, and people want to hear your ideas.
I would agree. I enjoy doing something that matters, that matters to me. I think the reason I stay is it continues to be challenging and always changing. And there's always something exciting to be done. So that's why I enjoy what I do.
Same, I think, sentiments. Like I said earlier, I started my career in education and spent most of the time there. So the kind of being at a mission-driven organization is just what I've always known. I was actually open to, trying the private sector and getting a feel for it. I don't discourage people from, I think Jenna, maybe going back and forth. But being at Be the Match definitely feels like home, just for what I've always known, and feel comfortable, like, working with people who are really passionate about what they do.
So for those students who might be starting out in the nonprofit and advocacy industry, what would you each recommend for students to do right now that would help them prepare for a career in it?
I would encourage them to keep doing research, reading articles, even trying to do informational interviews with people who currently work at nonprofits so they can get a better understanding of maybe what areas, because there's a lot of different nonprofits. They all operate a little bit differently. I would encourage them to do that because it might help them figure out which ones would be a better fit for them.
I feel like the message I always pass on in these panels, I keep getting asked back, but I always worry about getting in trouble for this. My advice would be just slow down, calm down. I think that we put a lot of pressure and we have a lot going on for young adults to really figure out their life career path. And so I would just say, agree with Jody that do some research and try different things. And I took a very unique path to get where I am. And I always just try to say, it's going to be okay. Just look at the different things that you enjoy, try some different things, and ultimately you'll find something that fits well for you.
I certainly agree with not putting a lot of pressure on yourself to have things all figured out. Life, hopefully you live a long life and you get the chance to do lots of different things. I know that can be uncomfortable, wanting to know what your next step is going to be and that you're going to be successful and it's all going to work out. but I think working hard and keep putting one foot in front of the other will take you, and following your interests, will take you where you want to go. I guess I'd add to that is to start volunteering, start serving now, to find those things that you're interested in, those fields that you're passionate about, or those roles that you want to take on. Some people are drawn to a specific interest, and other people are drawn to a specific role within an organization. So by just getting involved and starting to volunteer and serve now, I think that'll help a lot.
So I'm just going to ask probably 2 more questions now. And then hopefully some questions have accrued in the chat that we can have addressed. And then we'll wrap up because we're almost at time already. But tying into what Chris was just saying, are there other experiences or ways that they can get experience outside of volunteering that would help them grow in this career field?
If I speak specifically for Fraser, we're always hiring students. So they can gain experience by working for a nonprofit, just looking at our website. We work around their schedules. They can come in and work in the community living side, or they can work in the clinical side. So it'd be a great way for them to get experience and earn income at the same time while they're still going to school, and kind of set their own schedules.
I would agree with what Jody said. I think even if it's not something exactly what you want to be doing, even if you're just trying something out in the agency. I know when I first started, I was a legal advocate for a long time, but I tried working in shelters and served on a board. So just getting a lot of different kinds of experiences can be really helpful. We often are hiring in our shelter at some of those entry-level positions with students, as well as, of course, as you said, Dylan, volunteer and internship opportunities as well.
I guess I'll throw the official plug in for internships. If you are in a position and to do an internship, I strongly encourage you to do one. Unfortunately, many nonprofits don't have the finances to pay interns, so that certainly can be a barrier. Looking for funding opportunities to get your internship funded is something you can do. Or get a paid internship with in the private sector, build skills and take that back to the nonprofit sector. I think your skills and experience will be welcomed kind of no matter where you get it from. So as you are looking to spring or summer, thinking about the internship, if you have the time and capacity to do one, I'd recommend it.
Okay, so last question before we take a look at the chat. What are some trends or possibly upcoming changes that any of you might be noticing, patterns in the nonprofit sector?
I would think some of the patterns I was kind of surprised about, but that I'm starting to see is the ability to be so innovative. And as I mentioned before, patterns of just being able to move really quickly, to change on a dime, just because we don't have all of the red tape that a lot of the larger corporations have. And an example of that, I'll just give you an example of what we're currently doing. We don't like our applicant tracking system or our website with our career page, and we're looking at creating a separate website for a career page. We're also looking at creating our own applicant tracking system. So it's like I said, it's very entrepreneurial. It's fun being able to kind of look intrinsically at things that, okay, well, I'm in recruiting, why would I be looking at any of that? But you get involved in all of that too. You get involved in the marketing, you get involved in the processes and procedures and you can take things apart and start from the beginning and find a better solution or a better process.
I would add, I mentioned a little bit earlier that I think a lot of nonprofits are looking at both, an introspective view of their work, but also how their work fits within the larger world. We're in a public health crisis right now. domestic and sexual violence are obviously a public health crisis within themselves. So I think both looking at more broadly how it fits, and I think the other big piece is ensuring that we have diverse perspectives, both from staff and from getting some information from our clients as well. So making sure that we're serving underserved populations, and if we're not, how can we remove some of those obstacles? So just trying to look at, Chris kind of mentioned it, a lot of different perspectives and how they can play into our work.
I don't have anything to add, so we can just keep going.
Okay, so Beth, I saw a
Yeah,
question or two. Could you read those for us?
yeah, absolutely. So two key questions that have come in that I think we'd like to try to answer. First of all, are there opportunities for alumni at nonprofits as well as students? And then the second question, and it's been covered a little bit, but any additional comments around what is it about working at nonprofits that draws you over working at a for-profit organization? So again, the first question, are there opportunities for alumni as well as students?
Opportunities for employment with Fraser, yes. For paid internships, yes. For both alumni and for students.
I echo Jody's sentiments.
Yeah, same.
Great. And then any other comments about working for a nonprofit that draws you over working in the for-profit segment?
I would say the culture. It's an incredible culture that's very supportive, very innovative, very caring. And I haven't typically seen that in some of the for-profits because it's just a different culture. Not that for-profits are bad, they're not. And Chris mentioned that you can get some great experience at a for-profit and take it to a nonprofit. But those are some of the things that I've experienced. The culture is really great.
I would agree and just add the drive for the mission is the other big piece for me.
Yeah, I'd say it's more than a job for most people. So, which is exactly what has been said before.
Okay, well, observing the time, we're right at 1. I know we started a little bit late. I will put this information, this nonprofit and advocacy panelists, so you have their information. Beth shared them in the chat as well. And I will do a quick plug for there is a government and nonprofit career fair coming up at the end of October, which I will put a link for in the chat and can also project it if anyone is interested. This is kind of the group for it. So if you have any wonderings, want to attend another career fair, this is a great opportunity. But you should also reach out to our panelists today. And thank you all for attending. If you have any last minute questions, now's the time.
Thank you, Dylan, Chris, Jenna, and Jody. We appreciate your participation and thank you, students, for attending today's session.
Thank you all.
Thanks.
Bye, everyone.